Okay, how's بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm expecting to get a response to my testing.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah khairan. Okay, so my name is Zainab Yakub, and I'm going to be the host for today's program. And before I start, although I think the people here already are familiar with Mira, but this program is organized by the Muslims in Research and Academics, which is a group of young Muslims from Nigeria who are interested in advancing their career and to learn as much as possible from each other on what we need to do and how to navigate academic career. So as part of our activity, we have monthly webinar where we discussed various topics that is beneficial to everyone. And this monthly program comes up every last Sunday of the month and at 7:30 p.m. Nigerian time. So for today's program, we have with us Dr. Samaila Usman. Dr. Samaila Usman is a postdoctoral researcher with an expertise in animal nutrition and forage conservation. He earned his PhD in grassland agrostology from Lanzhou University, China, building on a solid academic foundation that includes a Bachelor of Agricultural Technology in Animal Production from Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, and a Masters of Agriculture in Pasture Production and Utilization from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. His academic and research journey reflects a deep commitment to advancing sustainable livestock production and innovative feed technologies. Dr. Usman has published over 50 scientific works with more than 6,000 reads and 300 citations, highlighting his growing impact in his field. His research focuses on improving silage quality, enhancing nutrient utilization, and addressing emerging challenges such as antibiotic resistance in forage systems, all aimed at promoting healthier, more productive, and sustainable ruminant production. So join me in welcoming Dr. Samaila Usman, where he's going to be discussing with us on how to communicate scientific research to the public. Dr. Samaila, the floor is open, and if you wish to share your screen, you can do so also.
All right, thank you very much. Let me first try to share this screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Well, I'm trying to put it on presentation now. Okay, is it on presentation mode, you know?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Zainab. I don't know if you got on my video is all right like this.
Whichever one is comfortable for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Zainab. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone that is here.
Walaikum assalam rahmatullah.
As I've been introduced by Zainab, I'm Samaila Usman, and today I will want take us through this discussion on how to communicate scientific research to the public. I don't know how possible it is to be navigating. I would have want, those that are online to probably use the chat. Since we are all into research, it will be very good for me to know which aspect of research most of the people that are here are, like the area of research. It will guide my discussion today.
Okay.
And,
So,
and then, all
okay.
right. Yeah.
Okay, you can put your research area in the chat box so that the guest speaker can see um the research area of the audience is speaking with. Please, let's just do that within 1 or 2 minutes now.
Nobody else. Okay. Yeah, I've seen one. Okay, that's fine. Probably, I'm doing great. Okay, the two and that's good. Good. All right, that's okay. Maybe in the course of the discussion, okay, great. Yeah, I'm really happy with the three people that have already put their own area of research, and then I realize that we have a very diverse audience today. And I hope I can do justice to the topic that we are going to discuss. Yeah, more people are adopting the area of research. But I think it is proven to me that we have a very diverse audience, which is what we really mean a lot to our discussion today. So today I will go through this few areas of scientific communication that I just want us to discuss on. And these are not exhaustive of all what is required for scientific communication, just that I pick this few so that we can guide our discussion and we can learn from each other on how to effectively communicate our scientific research to the public. Uh, Traditionally, scientists have already several ways on how they share their researches, and one of them is the most common is the academic journals and publication in peer review articles, and which is very common with the scientists. And I believe there was or there would be a presentation purposely on how to publish papers. And most of us here, since we are researchers, we must have in one way or the other, publish our work in a peer review article. Then the books are monographs, which are more of in-depth work on a particular topics, especially monograph which concentrate on a single topic to give a complete rundown of literature on that particular topic. This is another way that scientists share their research. And then we have university lectures and seminars where we all participate. We are in an academic environment. We know this is another way where we, share our research with peers. And then scientific societies, we normally belongs to different professional societies, and we used to have annual congresses and not only annual congresses and conferences where we share our scientific research. Then other ways as mass media nowadays, especially nowadays where we have social media, podcast, and so on. And then we have public lectures and exhibitions. These are also other ways where scientists share their research. However, most of the traditional way in which scientists share their research, are mostly, not all of them, but mostly are, between scientists, like between scientists and scientists. And today, what we want to see, we want to look at how communicate your research to the public. When I say, between scientists, it's between those that are actually in that particular profession. But when we say to the public, that is where you have a very diverse audience where many people, do not know anything that has to be researched. Therefore, it is open you to, communicate effectively on what you are doing and probably what are the, importance of what you are doing to the public. And recently, the most of the research funders expect researchers to have a broader impact, beyond their academic publications, especially when the research has, some implications that has to be probably political or some moral or legal implications. Therefore, effective communication helps bridge gaps between stakeholders in public policy, industry, and civil society. Then we go to the scientific communication itself. Uh, Effective scientific communication is not merely a translation of technical information, but a strategic process of making complex concepts accessible, relevant, and engaging to non-specialist audience, as I say. Therefore, the scientific communication it encompasses activities that connect science with society and it serves multiple vital functions. As I said, one of the ways that you are informing non-experts or scientific findings, you have done a research and probably you have done a research, find something that is very, very important to the society, or you have invented something through research and you have patented it and now you want to, inform the public about it. So it is important that you inform the public, effectively so that they won't under, they want to misunderstand, this scientific finding. Then raising public awareness and interest in science, because some of the scientific, findings, they really, really raise awareness among the society, and it helps people to get interest into science and what science is into, especially now with the area of AI and other things. You see, there are things that are really, really inspiring to people that it really that shows what scientists are into. Or if you look at a lot of so many big things that happens to the research, then we have influencing attitude and behaviors. Exactly. For instance, if you happen to mentor some people or you go to some schools, especially secondary and primary and secondary school, with some little scientific, inventions, it will help to inspire those younger ones. It will influence their attitude, behaviors. We see some people, we all see it in schools where the career day people choose this and that career. And also, even science also influence that kind of people at that age. Then informing, public policy. Public policy are mainly, based on the research that are carried out. It might be, a research that is scientific carried out in the laboratory or a research that is being, carried out even by the policymakers before they can make some effective policies. Then engaging diverse communities to address societal problems, which is, one of the most important and effective way of translating scientific research into society. Therefore, since we have understand this benefit, we know that effective scientific communication is a strategic process of making the complex concept accessible, relevant, and engaging to non-specialist audience. Then what are the key objectives of scientific communication? One, as I've said, is to inform. You need to share you need to inform the research findings with non-experts. For instance, I saw someone that is into mental health. Or for instance, in public health, you want to bring some guidelines. Maybe there's a pandemic or something that you want to bring some guidelines to inform the public. You need an effective way to communicate those kind of things. And another one is you need to engage. You need to engage. You need to foster dialogue among community. You need to engage, create dialogue between scientists and the public community through, forums and local environment issues. For instance, the issue of desertification, the issue of climate change. These are some of the things that scientists need to engage people in the community to try to inform them what is the effect of this, what is the effect of that. If you do this, if you do that, this is what will help. This is what is the effect based on climate change. Because scientists will just be saying climate change, climate change. Someone does not even know what is exactly the effect of climate change. Someone does not know that there is a way that he can contribute, in mitigating the climate change. So it means scientists need to interact with the community members and engage them so that they can influence. That's the next objective. They can influence their behaviors. I bring the example of climate change, campaigns, so that they can influence their behavior into a way that will give us a very safer and sustainable environment. And then the lastly is the inspire. As I've told you that it sparks interest of many people. Science. I give example of astronomy outreach programs. It's normally done maybe in Europe and something, where astronomers they come and display some of the things they do, in the space and all that. These are things that scientists inspire people. So these four things, I believe, are the key objectives of science communication. That's inform, engage, influence, and also inspire. Then what are the key principles of effective, under the key principles of effective studies, say you need to know your audience. That's the first one, know your audience. Audience analysis is the cornerstone of effective science, communication. Because sometimes if you want to, discuss your research findings, the way you would discuss your research findings with fellow scientists is different with the way that you discuss it with lay people. Sometimes we use a lot of different level of knowledge, different even though the expressions. Sometimes you may be using technical terms and all that if you are discussing with your peers, but when you are discussing with people in public, you need to be as simple as possible in such a way that they can understand you. It's a different audience, have different knowledge level and also interest in it. Because depending on the audience, whenever you are discussing something, there is something that I would be interested in. Probably I'm a scientist. Maybe what I'm interested in, I'm interested in your key findings. But probably someone that is not scientist, he's just interested in what will affect him, based on from your research. So we give example of potential investors. For instance, potential investors, you probably have done a research, you have invented something, you have patented it, and now you are trying to commercialize it. So you met an investors and trying to ask them to come and invest in your new product or your novel product. So what they will be, they'll prioritize there is how will they gain, the return of investment. If they invest in that, how can they make profit from it? And also, as I told you, I work on a silage. What we normally do is that we try to get some new novel inoculants, but there are so many inoculants in the markets. And you need to, if you want an investor to invest in that, you're not going to commercialize it, you need to discuss with him in such a way that he understands why he should invest in that, particularly, for instance, there are so many in the market, why your own is competitive, why farmers would like your own, inoculants, why will farmers use your own inoculant, why would they buy? So his always concentration is what he will get out of, his investments. But probably when you are taking with a journalist, all they want to know is that, okay, what is your novel findings? So that they can just air it to the public. The so person has invented this and that. That is what they are really, really interested. While, some scientists, what they're interested is in how they can, challenge that knowledge. So they may need something more deep. But probably a journalist just want to know the findings, not necessarily to know the process. And then when you're talking with community members, what they care is how will this affect our lives? So you see, different audience actually determine, the way you are going to, present your findings. That is why, scientific communication is effective scientific communication is very, very important, and understanding the audience is one of the key. Then, secondly, is the clarity and simplicity, of your language. The language you use in delivering your, sharing your, scientific findings to your audience. Also, say you need to avoid jargon and technical, terminology wherever possible, as I've mentioned. As I mentioned that, if you are taking the way you talk to scientists, the way you share your research findings is quite different with the way you do it with, lay people. Because if you use a lot of technical terms, probably they will get stuck and they may not even understand what you are trying to say. Then when specialized terms are really, really necessary, then you need to provide a clear definitions using, the language that are familiar to the people. I know everyone can relate in spirit. There is something when someone is said that we might not even understand. So he has to break it down to a particular language that, they understand. And the most important, you need to, engage your audience in such a way that at the end, they will find some things, some take-home message. So there's a strategy you say that you can employ, a three-point framework, which might include probably three major takeaways for your research. Mostly, if you are, if you are discussing your research finding, try and make them in points. What you really, really want, your audience to know. Try and make them in very simple language in points, so that at the end of the day, if I go and say, oh, this one has mentioned some three things, this, that, and that. Probably if the points are many, then I'll forget. But if you just mention a lot of things, so at the end of the day, maybe the audience will left without, having anyone in his mind. So when you use this three-point approach, the 3 points can be either three major takeaways from your research or three applications of your finding, or even maybe, three compelling statistics that highlight the importance, of your work. Because this structure of 3 points, they say it aligns with, cognitive processing preference, and it enhances information retention by individual. So it is very good that, you use a clear, a simple, and, this kind of approach when you are sharing your, scientific findings. Then another way is the storytelling approach. There is a scientist who was turned to a filmmaker now, that's Randy Olson. He said scientists need to lighten up and use persuasive means like storytelling to communicate effectively. So what he's trying to say is that, a good story, for instance, like the storytelling, a good story has a beginning, which in science we see that beginning, as the problem or the question. Then it has a middle, that is the research process and challenges, and then it has an end, which is the findings and implication. So when you use a narrative structure, it's a very powerful tool for science communication. Humans are wired of stories, which make information more memorable and more, engaging. Because these stories, they create emotional connections that pure data cannot, achieve. So making your message more persuasive and more memorable when you use, this kind of storytelling is one of the, effective way that you can, deliver your scientific findings to the public. Then another key principle is, visual communications. Visual communication, you can use charts and graphs to present your data relationships clearly. For me that I'm in an environment where you have language barrier. Sometimes you don't understand the language so deeply that you can effectively communicate with people. Use of visualization is very, very important, because the way people can just grab information from visualization is quite different than maybe when you use other methods. And then you employ high quality images and diagrams to illustrate concepts. For instance, even as a researcher, if you're going through papers, a paper that give you a very quality image, quality illustration, in a simple way that you can understand it, you really, really, appreciate that one. And those that will just give you information, probably, although it depends on the kind of priority. So this is the same thing when you are taking let people, or when you are presenting your research, or when you are, doing some symposium and illustration to people that are actually mm, not necessarily scientists. It's easy for you to share your research findings, through diagrams. Then you create consistent visual slide throughout your presentation. For instance, if you have conducted a research, this is very common things that we use in papers and everything. You can use probably the same color, the same style for a particular treatment, and also for another treatment, or a particular group or for another group. So you need to use that consistently throughout your presentation. And then you minimize text on the slide, especially when you have already used some diagrams and figures. Then consider an interactive visualization that allow audience to explore the data themselves. For instance, now people create some website where you just go there, you get the things that you want. For instance, if you go to some database like that of FAO, that is a Food and Agriculture Organization, you can see sometimes you just click on this particular data, or you just click on a map of a country and it show you, the data you want in that particular country. So that is visualizing and also making it, interactive, by the audience. So understanding these key principles, it really helps us to know how we can effectively, communicate our scientific findings to the public. Then another thing is what are the practical method and the techniques, because I've mentioned, the importance of the principle, the things you need to do. Then what are the practical methods? Then let us start with the interactive engagement strategy. This is one of the practical method that you can engage your audience. You need to use an interactive engagement. One of it is like you ask questions, you ask some audience questions, you have technology falling out. And for instance, now when we started, I just asked a question that what is what are like the specialization of our audience? And immediately some people give us feedback. So this is one of the effective way, of communicating. When you engage in a reports, through questions, or you want to, bring some scientific findings and that relate to the people. And you can ask someone that, oh, who has so particular experience and that a particular experience on that, or who has been affected. For instance, you want to bring a particular drugs that cure hypertension. You can just ask your audience, okay, who is suffering, from high blood pressure or something like that, and you get, effective answers. So when you do like that, and then you tell them, okay, I have so thing that I discover that can help you to cure this and that. That will make them, you engage them to interactions, and that will make them, attentive to the information you want to deliver. Then question and answer session. They say you incorporate questions throughout the presentation, not just at the end or post up a session, and give audience the ownership of the discussion. It means when you are discussing, a scientific findings, you need to give the audience the room to ask you questions at any point, and then we respond to them with a question. Then another way is gamification. It's like bringing some games like quizzes with some small word recognition activities, because they said that this kind of activities, it increases the dopamine. Dopamine is just like a particular hormone that actually enhance and motivates people to learn. So when you do things like that, it make it more interactive, it make it more appealing, the environment for you to effectively communicate your findings to the public. And then lastly is a small group discussion. Sometimes you just put the issues to people and allow them and to engage and discuss within themselves this and that. Sometimes you even give some problems for them to solve by themselves before you go deeply into what you really want to discuss with them. Or even along the line, you can also create some things like that give rooms, for discussions among the audience. Therefore, active participation significantly boosts information retention, because when people participate in what you want to say, they will definitely, try to remember what information you have, delivered to them. And then another practical method is using, analogies and metaphors. And this one is mostly, you can create that's why we create what we call like a model that we identify the core concepts probably you want to explain. For instance, you are working on things that has to do with, recently I saw some primary school students, they are working on how you can, make some missiles and all that, which are something that you are not accessible to. But they try to use something like a ball and, some pressure in a particular tube. When you put it, then it will just release the ball like the way they release this kind of, ballistic things and all that. So what I'm saying is that you can do something like that. It's just an idea that, identify the core concept that will explain what you want to bring. Then brainstorm of familiar activities or objects that, share the perspective with the scientific concept you really want to, share with the audience. And then test your analogy with people outside your field. Ensure that it resonates, to ensure that people will not, misunderstand the concept you really want to explain. And then, use consistent, analogies throughout your communication to avoid confusion. This use of analogies and metaphor are really, a practical way that you can share your effectively communicate your scientific findings to the public. Then another thing is use of multimedia and digital tools, which is very, very common nowadays. One is that we can use some short videos, podcasts, interactive website, and social media content to convey your research findings. So when you are doing this, what you need to do is that, for instance, you need to keep your videos short and also focused so that it won't be boring for people to follow. And then, you can use animations also to deliver some scientific findings. You don't need to use the real videos, you can use the animations. There are so many softwares now that you can use in making animations. And I don't know if probably some that are into biotechnology, if you have ever come across a website or legit central dogma, you can see how, DNAs and RNAs are really replicated just using animations and everything. I think this is one of the good ways of learning. When you see some concepts that probably cannot be explained in abstract, you can use animations to, describe those kind of concepts. So then you can employ platforms that are appropriate for particular content. For instance, people use the Twitter tweet, for science updates. You can use Instagram for visual, compelling images. We are using images, and now I think a lot of people use what do you call it, use TikTok, but I don't know if we researchers also do use it. But because there are a lot of audience there, you can also use. And then you can use YouTube for a deeper, explanation. When you have something, like we have a lot of lectures on YouTube, we have a lot of, all these are, way where you can share your scientific findings to the public. Then you need to include captions and, transcripts for accessibility. This really help, people to search. For instance, if you go to YouTube, if you get another thing, if you just search the things that you need to see. So if you put caption into it, and another thing, for instance, like those that are into, statistics, coding here, or those, sometimes when you share your video, someone will want to replicate what you did, so you need to share, the course and everything, or you give them the link where they can get access to the code and everything. So this caption and this kind of transcript are really, really helpful for accessibility when you are using the media and digital tools to deliver your, scientific findings to the public. Then the next thing is, overcoming common challenges and pitfalls. Definitely, we are trying to do this, and there are a lot of, challenges if you want to try to effectively, communicate your some findings. And one of them is the way you can overcome it, you should avoid use of technical address. Well, jargon here, it means like a lot of, technical language, which I've already mentioned earlier when we talk about, simplicity and clarity. So they say that take the time in your writing to state the obvious because it is not obvious to most people. Definitely people that are not in the field, it's difficult for them to understand what you are trying to say. So you need to, try and make it as simple as possible. You need to identify necessary technical terms that are prepared. It means if there are technical terms that are, very, very necessary, so you need to give them a clear definition, use analogies to explain complex instruments or methods. We have explain analogy earlier, then test your language with representative from the target, from your target audience. Sometimes you can pick one or two people to try to talk to them and see if your language is actually appropriate, if they can grab what you want to say. And then they say you should replace acronyms with descriptive terms whenever possible. These are all trying to, avoid the technical language. Then another thing is addressing misinformation and skepticism in scientific findings. So here I try to give us example on the trend now about, especially in our country, about the GMO, that genetically modified, organism. For instance, if you find yourself to be working on gene editing in some crops or even some animals. And what you are trying to do is you are trying to, enhance the productivity or to enhance a particular feature of that particular organism. And all of a sudden, there are a lot of misconceptions that people think that, oh, this people will come and say this for you, this for you, that. So you need to address this kind of, misinformation and, the skeptic attitude people have toward this kind of scientific I think, advancements. So acknowledge uncertainty without undermining confidence in established, science. That is, we know definitely there are some things that these GMOs that they are liking. For instance, as I used to say, like GMO is just a classical breeding made faster and easier. So, but in that way, those original, organisms used to lose some of their, functions or some of the bioactive compounds that, people used to grab from them. At the moment, it's okay if you, accept that. If you, accept that yes, this can happen, but there is not any scientific evidence that this thing are not useful. So we need to then explain the scientific process. It means you need to explain to the people how, the knowledge evolved through evidence and through, peer review, so that you address this kind of misconception. Then you focus on the consensus where it exists and while acknowledging, legitimate debates. Yeah, there's people will tell you that yes, we agree, it has, high yield, it has this, it has this, but they will still tell you that, but we are still skeptical about this and that. And if their debate is valid, you need to accept that. So you are not like, pushing your, scientific, advancing your findings on people, but you also need to understand what is, what is like their stand on it. Then I'll avoid repeating misinformation, even when attempting to refute it. And then empower audience with critical thinking skills to evaluate scientific claims. As I've said earlier, probably you can even give room for people to have discussion among themselves and to tell you, the feedback or how they feel about, your new scientific findings that you really want to share with them. Then another thing is, managing complex statistical information.
I'm sorry to you have 5 minutes remaining.
All right, okay. Managing complex statistical information. We know how we conduct scientific research. For instance, we present our results mostly in in a statistical way, which is very, very difficult for people to understand if we are really not scientists. So here you have to merge it. For instance, I mentioned of use of absolute rates rather than use of relative rates. I know many people that are into medical related research or into public health, I guess someone is in mental health, would understand what absolute rates is and, relative rates. For instance, relative rates when you are just comparing something with your control. But in real sense, if you take the absolute rates, although it may be statistically significant, but it might not be, very, very important, in real life. I give an example. For instance, you have invented a drug. Let me just use blood pressure that can lower blood pressure maybe by 1 unit. You find it that between that, your drug treatment and your control, it can drop significantly. Like they drop, but it will drop only by 1 unit, but that one is actually significant when you compare to the control. But in real life, just that 1 unit does not make any difference. So that's what I'm trying to say about the absolute and the relatives. Then you provide context of numbers compare that are familiar and everything. For instance, when you conduct the research for us that in agriculture, you just use a sample that at the end of the day what you get is just values that are not what we use. We probably just use grams and this gram of this gram of that. Then we need to extrapolate it to a number that people are really, familiar with. And then use data visualization, to be accurate in spread graphs and charts, then explain uncertainty using confidence intervals or quantitative descriptions. Instead of confidence interval, you can use where you use a qualitative description like strongly this and strongly that or not this and that. And then highlight practical significance beyond statistical significance, as I've said. Something may be statistically significant, but it might not be quite important, to the public. And also, you should avoid, this concept like statistical significance, risk assessment, and confidence intervals. They might easily get misinterpreted, interpreted by the public. I'm just trying to rush to meeting. Then, developing the scientific communication plan. How do you develop, plan? How you communicate, your scientific findings? First, you need to set, your goals and objectives. You need to identify the primary and secondary, objective of what you want to. Okay, this is what I want to, share with people. This and that. My objective is just to share this with people to get this direction, to get this and that. You have to identify what is your, primary and secondary objectives. You need to define your success metrics. Like, how will you know that your communication is really, really effective? By getting feedbacks, by getting this, by getting that. These are things that you need to know. You need to define the metrics. Then you need to consider audience motivation. Always when you want to talk, don't just think about yourself, about what you want to say. No, you have to think about what audience really want to hear. And then by that way, you should need to align your goals with the audience with an interest. Then another way is choosing appropriate platforms and formats. You can use traditional presentation for captive audience, that at conferences and community that's open. You can use social media for broad reach and engagement with diverse publics. We have talked about multimedia. Then you can use interactive website. I've even given an example of some database website like that. FAO. Then you can use video content for demonstrating process or telling comparing stories. You can use podcast for detailed discussion and interview, and then printed materials for audience that really doesn't have access to some digital media. Then content development process. If you want to develop a content, you need to first define the core message that you want to deliver to this content. Like what is the single most important things that your audience should remember. Like if I see your content, what do I remember? Then you need to identify key supporting points. But you should limit, as I've said earlier, you need to limit your points, 3 and highest probably 5. So that at the end of the day, your audience should say, oh, I actually learned this, that, and that, or I can actually remember this, that, and then we develop a narrative arc that is unique to your story. I told you that it will be like a storytelling. Then you need to, design some visual elements. I mentioned about the use of analogies and metaphors. And then, practice and refine. That means you need to have your presentation, seek feedback from representative audience, so that by the time you are doing the main thing, it will, effectively deliver what you want to do. So, and lastly, you need to prepare for questions and anticipate audience, question and give them clear responses. This structured development ensure coherent and effective communication. Then, lastly, in my conclusion, from what I've said, you understand that to have to effectively communicate your scientific findings, it requires an intentional strategy tailored to audience and contents. Begin with audience analysis, knowledge level and interest, then use clear, jargon-free language, employ compelling narratives and visuals to enhance engagement, encourage dialogue and interaction, not one-way transmission, then convey excitement and societal relevance of, your research, and then genuine enthusiasm inspire audience to take care about your work. So these are just the few things I say today, and I hope it's meaningful I hope you find it meaningful, and if you have any questions or something that you want us to discuss further, then thank you very much for listening.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman, for this discussion. I've really learned so much, and I want to believe that other people also were able to pick one or two things from this. So if you have questions, you can either put it in the chat box or signify if you want to ask him yourself. But before we go to the question and answer, I'll just give a brief summary of Dr. Usman's discussion, and I would also like to inform us that this discussion and all our monthly discussion is usually uploaded on YouTube. So in case you wish to listen again, or you want to listen to our previous discussion with other interesting speakers, you can go to our YouTube page. I'll put the link in the chat box also. And then I also want to say that MIRA, which is Muslims in Research and Academics, that is organizing the program, also has a WhatsApp group page. So if anyone is interested, they can drop their number on the chat box and we'll add them. So today's lecture was on how to communicate your research to the public. So the first thing the guest speaker told us was to list the different traditional communication that is available. And this shows that communicating your research goes beyond the normal communication tools that we know. Okay, I publish my research in journals, I present in conferences and all that. So communicating goes beyond that one. So we have to look at how do we get all the other stakeholders involved, do we let them know what our research is about. So one of the important things we need to know is to know your audience. So different audiences determines how we are going to communicate our project. For example, if you are speaking with an investor, you are not just saying, oh, this research has to do with this, it will do this, it will do that. You have to let him know the ROI that he's going to get from this project, how it is going to benefit him as an investor, what he needs to know. And for example, if you are speaking to a journalist or community members, they need to know, okay, this is how this project will influence our lives. This is how how important it is to the public. And at the same time, if you are speaking with your colleagues, how you present it, you probably need to know the scientific process you used and what your result is, and maybe the challenges you faced and all that, or the future prospect of the research. So depending on who you are communicating with will determine how you are going to communicate. Then one thing that we need to learn as scientific researchers is that we should try as much as possible to use storytelling approach. So we should not just talk. We need to um, lighten up, because I remember I saw it during your presentation. Don't just talk like yeah, we are robots. So we need to lighten up and set the mood for our discussion so that the people who are listening will be able to connect to the discussion. In as much as possible, use visual communication. This won't make your presentation boring. So when they're able to see like the images, so it would help your audience with focusing on your presentation. So there are different practical methods that the speaker talked about, which is interactive engagement, and the use. I think I read this one. Use examples that people can relate with. So while you are depending on the audience you're speaking with, you need to be as much as possible make it easy for them to relate with the discussion. So you use examples that they can relate with, so that they would for me publishing my work. I would like to have a podcast where I talk about my work, or I would like to also be talking about it in maybe Instagram live channel or Facebook live, where I talk about what I do, how it can be beneficial to others. And some people just like to, okay, let me just publish it freely, maybe part of my work to through Medium or the likes, different tools that are available. And also the speaker talked about overcoming challenges. So as much as possible, we need to avoid jargons when we are speaking. Yes, we have to speak clearly so that people would understand. And then um, acknowledge uncertainties with represent confidence. You have to talk with room for difference of opinion. So you don't present your research work with pride. Like this is the only way, this is this. No. It's possible that there are different processes, different opinions about you. So you have to give people room to discuss and have like different opinion with your research work. And developing a science communication plan. So I concluded with talking about having a communication plan, setting goals and objectives. So depending on your objective, it would help drive how your communication plan is. And depending on your communication plan, you can now develop how you want to go about and how you want to communicate with your research. So thank you very much. So if you have question, please signify. I think, is there any
Yeah, not only
somebody is
question.
trying?
Maybe if someone has more to add, because this is, I think it's a discussion. So
Yeah, so
the
if
knowledge is not
anyone,
limited to one person. Yeah. So
yeah, so
also we can share.
question, clarification, your own idea, what you want to add to this, please let us know. Okay, okay, it seems there is no question. I'm guessing everybody enjoyed the discussion very much. Okay, once again, I'd just like to say Jazakallah khairan to Dr. Usman. Thank you for doing this within your short time frame. Really appreciate it. I think there's a question in the chat box. Someone said, how, come in, how often will you prefer conference to journal?
Okay. Thank you very much, Engineer Sharafuddin, for this question. This is a very important question, especially among scientists. How often will you prefer conference to journal? Actually, we know for your research to be validated anywhere, you need to publish it in a peer review, journal, which is the ultimate. But mostly, we like to present our researches, in conferences where we know we have people that are already in that particular, profession, where they can, critique the work before you even present it to any journal. That is one way. When you present your work in a conference, people there are actually specialists in that particular field. So they will give you a very good, critic on that your work, how you can improve it, or probably how you present it. You need to improve your presentation, or you need to improve on that work. Or they will give you a new research idea. So this conference is very, very important where you discuss with your peers in your own profession, and they will give you another research ideas. You also go to conferences, you also learn from other people's research ideas. But when you compare them with journal, yes, we like to first present to a conference so that by the time we are, submitting our work to a particular journal, we believe it would have met, the standard, that you will not fear any peer review because you have already discussed it with your peer and they have already, accent it probably. So it will it will be easy for you to get your work accepted if you have, just some suggestions earlier from conferences you presented. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, thank you. I think Dr. Yusuf has a question, please.
No.
Assalamu
The
alaikum
conference,
wa
it doesn't, sorry, let me respond to him. No, presenting your work in the conference does not mean that you have submitted it elsewhere. No. Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Jazakumullah, yeah, Jazakumullah khairan for the wonderful presentation. It was indeed an eye-opening discussion. So I would just like to ask a question regarding how can effective scientific communication improves a researcher's metric in terms of his impact to be well known in the research field and being able to um, communicate effectively to other researchers so that other researchers can find this or our work useful to also advance the state of the science. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. I think this is also very important because, as I've said, initially considering the traditional way we used to publish our research, which is normally in the, peer review journal. And at the same time, this is what is being used to, rank our researches. Every year we see this percentage of this scientist, this percentage. But what you don't know is that by the time, you communicate your scientific research to the public, it will get to the people that at the end they will want to find out where did you publish their research, or if they are doing something similar, that is what will even increase your citations in the papers you have already published it. So what we're saying, communicating to the public does not stop you from publishing it to the journal. You publish it there and you come and communicate it to the public. You are doing a wider, reaching wider audience, and from there they can search your profile and even cite your work, and at the end of the day, I will say you indirectly, when they cite your work, it will help your ranking. But for now, I don't think if there's any basis where, this, public communicating of research findings is being used to rank any researcher, but indirectly to help you to, it will help your research to get to many audience, and people can find your profile online and they can read your papers and even cite them. So through reading and citing, that is how, your metric can be increased. I don't know if this also answer your question. So,
Jazakumullah khair, it did. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf, for the question. I think someone else, if you have, okay.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman, for the talk. With regards to conferences, I recently submitted my abstracts to present at a conference, and I noticed they sent me a mail that the deadline for the submission of my slides, as well as the full paper of my work, is so date. So the impression I had initially was to just go there to improve on the work like you said, and then look for a Scopus indexed journal, maybe of high ranking, try to tailor the work to be able to publish in a high, like a Q1, Q2 journal. But I'm now confused that are they compelling me to submit my paper to be able to make that presentation? What would be your advice? Would it be advisable that I go ahead with that, or probably reach out to them to make them know that I'm only here for the conference and not to publish with their journal particularly? What would be your advice, sir? Thank you.
Okay, the question is that those conferences, is this going to be hosted by a journal?
Yes, it's a university organized conference, and they have their journals too that they publish in. But I
No,
noticed that the journals are not Scopus indexed, so I felt
no,
it may be
I
better for me
think
to.
you need to confirm. Probably what they want to do is they want to, we also write, our conference papers in form of manuscript and submit it, and they publish it in the conference proceedings, not a journal. So you need to
Okay.
confirm it's just for the conference proceedings. And if it's for the conference proceedings, that's okay. You don't need to put everything. You can just put some part of your work, then it appears in the conference proceedings. And you can go ahead
Okay.
and publish it in a very good journal. You need to confirm.
Oh, so
Actually, they can.
that doesn't affect publishing
No,
elsewhere, right?
it doesn't affect. It's just a conference
Oh,
proceedings. It will just
oh,
appear in the conference proceedings, and then you can go ahead, and make it more in
thank you so
depth, and
much.
then publish it in a
Oh,
peer review journal, because most of the conference proceedings are not, they are being reviewed, but
yeah, they're not.
going through that rigorous peer review like journals did. And I
No.
think that won't be a problem. You can go ahead and do
Oh,
that.
right, sir.
Then
All right, sir. Thank
you
you
should.
very much. Okay, I
Go
appreciate that.
ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Dr. Usman said. Like he said, you have to confirm from there if it is conference proceeding or if it is a journal. If it is conference proceeding, it's just about no more than 4 pages. So it's more like a summary. So you don't put in so much details. So you need to confirm it, because if they now tell you that it is maybe a journal or something, you can tell them that you are not interested in publishing the paper, that you're just here for the to present your paper.
Present oral
And
presentation.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it should be an issue.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So it's past time spent. So I think we can end today's discussion here. Once again, Jazakallah khairan to our guest speaker, Dr. Usman. Thank you very much for today's lecture. And we'll see you all next month, inshallah, last Sunday of October, which will be, let me see, that would be 26th of October, inshallah, with another interesting lecture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.